Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers, and back with us is DeShazier. He is, taking some time off this week. No, I'm just kidding. He wasn't feeling the best, so we gave his voice some time to rest, but he is back in action. Still has been at practice. So, JD, what have been some of the things that have stood out to you in the first 4 days?
I think the thing that jumped out the most is we've seen some splash plays, offense and defense. I would say tilted more toward the offense because this offense wants to get players in open space, and we've seen a lot of guys with completions in 7-on-7s or whatever in open spaces. I think that's very good for the offense. But we also seen some pretty nice defensive plays too. We've seen some interceptions. We've seen some pass breakups. So we've seen some real, and we saw, not a pass breakup, but a great offensive play by Chris Olave against Alontae Taylor. Mm-hmm. But we've seen some things on both sides of the ball. I think that should be encouraging for the team. So it's going to be more interesting to see what happens next week because it's tough to gauge the running game when you don't have pads on. They'll have the pads on Monday. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more physicality. These guys are going to get a lot more testy as the week goes on because they're going to have those pads on for 3 consecutive days. So by that third day, they're going to be sick of each other. So hopefully things will settle down a little bit as they go. But that's when I think we get a chance to see it really go live and see guys really make the progress.
You mentioned the run game, though, and even the pads aren't on, the offensive line, defensive line not really being able to block how they probably would. It did seem like the lanes were opening up a little bit more today. So is it just because people are getting more comfortable with the scheme and where they need to go?
A lot of it has to do with the deception. Everything looks the same in this offense. And so as we heard Colin Saunders talking today, if you don't read your keys properly, if you relax, that's when they're going to get you because that's the time they're going to hand it to Alvin Kamara and he's going to break one on you. So the lanes are going to be there because they're going to make things look the same. And so that dig route is going to be a handoff one at some point in time. You just don't know when the running back's going to have the ball. And that deception is really going to play well for the Saints offensively because they needed something to inject some enthusiasm and some adrenaline into this offense. I think they've got it. We'll see as we go along, but I think they've got it.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered this team for a while. How different does this look so far through the beginning of training camp?
It looks totally different. I know the offensive players want to be respectful of the pass offense, and I get it because it was a very productive offense for a lot of years. But they needed something new. And this newness seems to have injected the kind of enthusiasm into these guys that they really needed because you can see the pop in them. You can see the legs in them. These receivers want to be able to catch the ball in space to see what they can do with the yards at the catch. And that's something they hadn't been able to do a lot of over the past couple of years. Now they can, you got to be able to make contested catches, but you also need an offense that's designed that gives these guys some space to let them use that speed. So Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed aren't the biggest guys in the world, but they're plenty fast. And if you get them the ball on the move in space, good things can happen.
Yeah, you mentioned Olave with the contested catch against Alontae Taylor. There was a lot of contact in that play, and Olave came down with the ball. He held on to the ball after hitting the ground. We saw Rashid Shaheed today with a couple good carries after the catch. So it does seem like they're getting opportunities to be more productive in this offense, and the speed is a huge factor in that. But a couple players for you, maybe one on offense, one on defense, that you've kind of just noticed here in the first few days of camp.
I guess if I wanted to go offense, I'd probably say Derek Carr because I think Derek Carr's had a good camp. I expected him to have a good camp. This offense is one that he's been looking at from afar for years, and he's dove into it. So I wanted to see how he responded. And outside of throwing an interception on the first pass in 7-on-7s, he's looked pretty good. He's looked like he understands what's going on in this offense and what's expected of him. So I want to continue to see that progression because, look, this offense is his. I understand they have, Jake Hayner and Spencer Rattler and Nathan Peterman, but this offense is Derek Carr's. All this thing is geared toward getting the most production out of him. So I wanted to see if he's going to continue to grow in it, and it looks like he has. Now, we can't say anything about offensive linemen because if we could, I would say Trevor Penning is a guy that I've been watching. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to gauge the progress right now. So when they get to pass on, we'll have a better understanding of that. Defensively, the guy I've noticed is Jalen Ford. Well, I say Jalen Ford now. Willie Gay is going to be Willie Gay. Willie Gay's going to play in this defense, folks. And I think he's going to play in the base defense. I don't think it's going to be, situational. I think he's going to be one of the starting 11 out there, regardless of what the opponent's doing, because he looks like he's that good a player. I know the Saints used to like to play that big nickel where they had the extra safety for pass, and that kind of thing. But this guy can cover. This guy can run, and he's going to be on the field. But I think Jalen Ford, he's going to be a backup linebacker. He's a rookie, but I think he's going to get some time. Noticed a little bit out of Kool-Aid McKinstry because now he's out there a little bit more without Marshawn Lattimore. So he's playing the corner and Alonzo Taylor's playing the slot. But he looks like he's got the moxie to do it. He just looks like he looks the part physically, and he looks the part when you see him on the field because he looks like he knows or has a good grasp of what he's doing. And a guy who seems to always be impressive in training camp and carried it over to the regular season last year is Paulson Adebo. Paulson Adebo looks fabulous. People can't get catches on him, and that's whether that's practice or not. Paulson Adebo looks like he's ready. He took a big jump last year. He looks like he's ready to take another jump this year. So I'm really intrigued to see how it's going to be for him as it goes along, especially when we get into the pass and the 7-on-7s and the 1-on-1s where they get the drills with the receivers, because he looks like a lockdown type corner.
Yeah. You brought up Willie Gay Jr., and yeah, he's been flying around. He's been on the field a lot. He had a play today where he covered a lot of ground to get in front of a ball, tip to pass, in front of Taysom Hill. I mean, Taysom had no chance because Willie was there and completely broke it up. So that was cool to see from him. But, there are going to be some rookies that are going to get some opportunities. And Kool-Aid McKinstry off all summer because he'd been dealing with his foot injury still. But this is the first time we've really seen him full participant in practice. And with Marshawn Lattimore going out of practice yesterday with a hip flexor injury, didn't see him today in practice. And Kool-Aid, he got the first reps there on the right corner, which was interesting because then Alontae Taylor, it looks like he is going to be that slot no matter what, and he is not going to be moving back outside.
Yeah, I think that's what and we know, like last year, he didn't like it. He said it himself. He didn't like it. He didn't embrace it. He didn't play as well as he could have in there. And I think a lot of that was mental because he just didn't really want to do it. So now that he has an understanding, look, this is where you're going to be. You can play this. You can do it well. You can make a lot of money doing it. So embrace it. And I think he's kind of leaned into that. But Kool-Aid looks like he can just play. He looks like a guy, he came from Alabama, so he's going to be skilled. But he looks like he can just play. He looks like he's ready to step on a field for an NFL team in game one and get meaningful snaps. And that's significant for a rookie who missed the entire offseason. So now he picks up those reps because Marshawn Lattimore is hurt. And if you're talking about a hip flexor for a cornerback, I'm no doctor, but that could be a minute. That's not going to be tomorrow. So that's going to be something that bears watching because McKinstry, once he gets out there and he gets those reps under his belt and he feels more comfortable, he looks like a guy who, when the time comes and you need as many good cornerbacks in the NFL as you can possibly stack up, he's going to be on the field.
Yeah, another person who's getting more opportunity because of injury was Jordan Mims, because running back Kendre Miller went out in the first practice, and Mims kind of just moved right up the depth chart. He is now getting third-team reps, and he's really stood out. And I know Coach Allen spoke really highly about him today. Some of the other players, Eric McCoy, had some good stuff to say about him after practice as well. So that's another position group to continue to keep an eye on. And then we're going to continue to look at the depth in the wide receiver room. We know that Olave and Rashid Shaheed are your 1 and 2, but Who falls in after that? Are they going to be somebody that we see as a returner? In a lot of situations, Mason Tipton has stood out. So that's another name that kind of has kept popping up throughout the week. I don't know. There's a lot to look forward to next week as the pads come on, and then we can really get into some more analysis of the offensive and defensive lines. But it's been a fun week so far.
Yeah, I think Monday's going to be a great day because it's the first day in pads, and guys are going to be really enthusiastic. Want to see how they respond to it Tuesday after they get a little bit bruised up and a little bit banged up on Monday. And then Wednesday, how they fight through it, knowing that they have an off day the next day, how they fight through it and see what the enthusiasm is on Wednesday. But I'm really looking forward to next week because, the coaches and the players love to say, you don't start playing football until you put the pads on. Mm-hmm. So they put the pads on. The enthusiasm should skyrocket on Monday. And hopefully that enthusiasm is channeled correctly. You don't want to see these guys fighting. You certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt. But you do want to see some testiness because these guys are competitive. Mm-hmm. And there should be some testiness, and I think there will be.
There was a little testiness today when somebody tried to tackle Olave a little too high. It was kind of around the neck. And, some people stepped up and a little extracurricular activity, nothing crazy. But, definitely going to get turned up a notch next week. JD, thank you so much for giving us your insight here in the first 4 days of camp in Irvine. And we look forward to more action next week. I also got a chance to catch up with quarterback Derek Carr's brother, David Carr, who was on site Saturday watching practice alongside MJ Acosta-Ruiz and Ian Rappaport for Back Together Saturday, a part of the NFL Network's coverage. We are definitely back in action. Football is underway, and things are just getting started. So here's my conversation with David Carr. David, we saw you last year at training camp in New Orleans. How different is it to be here?
Well, it's a lot hotter. This is beautiful. I think the guys can take advantage of this for sure as far as recovery goes and maybe pushing themselves a little bit harder. This is a lot closer to my house. I don't have to get on a plane. This is very nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not that it's all about you, but no,
I'm
happy that we've accommodated things.
Yeah, you accommodated me, and I appreciate that.
You're out here getting a chance to see this new look offense. For the first time in 15 years, the Saints have a new offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak. What are you looking for as far as how that can re-energize this offense?
Well, the interesting part about Clint coming in is like this. I was talking to Dennis Allen earlier about it. Like, he's going to have to play against this type of offense if he's going to go where he wants to go. Like, they want to win a Super Bowl. It's not a secret that there's veteran guys on this team that feel like they have the ability, and now possibly even schematically on both sides, the opportunity to get to the big game and to win it. And so I think that being able to practice against that type of offense, which you're going to see in San Francisco, Green Bay runs it, like all the teams in your conference, to be able to get the reps against those guys and understand what makes them tick, to be able to practice against San Francisco here coming up in a little while, that's so crucial. And I think offensively it's going to be great because I think it'll improve the run game. A lot of things are going to come off it. The play action pass game will be better. You'll be able to get the ball to multiple guys. It's a good offense, but I think more than anything, the defense getting to see that and getting to understand how they work and how they operate, that's going to be vital, especially as you get towards the end of the season.
The defense has said that they've enjoyed seeing something different on the opposite side, practicing against an offense that they will see several times.
That's right.
How much does that benefit them once they get into the season?
Yeah, well, I think you get to understand what makes them work. Like, why are these offensive systems so special? Why are they utilized throughout the league, especially on the better teams? Like, why is this something that constantly is in the playoffs and constantly going into Dallas if you're Green Bay and getting after that team? Like, what makes this thing work? And so the defense getting to play against that every day, to understand the blocking schemes, understand the calls. It's going to be the same thing when they play San Francisco, they play Green Bay. The calls are the same. Like, the audibles are the same. So I think that's going to be crucial, especially for a veteran defense like this that has a lot of guys that communicate very well. We were talking a little bit before even the show. It's like this veteran group understands that there's a sense of urgency that you have to have, and they're going to pick up on everything Derek says, everything the offensive linemen say, because they're going to correlate that to, okay, in January, when we're where we want to be and we're playing the teams that are going to be running this offense, we'll know how to stop it.
Yeah, you mentioned Derek Carr, quarterback for the second year now with the Saints. What have you seen from him, some of your conversations with your brother during this offseason leading into year two?
Well, I ran this offense with Gary Kubiak when I was in Houston, and we've seen it kind of go throughout the league since then. And Clint coming in, Derek really hadn't ever experienced this type of offense. He's been in a system where he's had a lot of control at the line of scrimmage. He's utilized a lot of audibles. There's a lot on the quarterback's plate. This offense is very quarterback friendly, but it's not that they're on autopilot, but they're not asked to do as much. They're asked more to rip through progressions, find the open guy. That's something that Derek's always done a great job of. Even when he was with Gruden, when he was running that type of offense, it was a high completion percentage offense. And this adds the element of play action, some boot game, some stuff where there's some easier completions, some screens. The run game is going to be, that's like the biggest thing for me, is that the run game is going to improve, because last year, unless Taysom was out there at quarterback running the football with favorable numbers, it was hard for us to get anything going, on the ground. I think this is going to be the best part of this offense, is that run game and what they've brought over from Minnesota and the offensive line coach. Like, these guys are going to be tremendous on the ground. And so the play action pass game, the big plays down the field, it's not going to be as much where Derek's going to have to just be perfect with the protection call and be perfect with the audible that he gets into. Like, a lot of times these plays, they kind of create themselves. And good offenses, you have to have, 15, 20% of your offense has to be just automatic. Mm-hmm. Like, you just roll out of bed and run it that day. And the good offenses have that, and I think that the Saints are going to have that this year.
Well, the offensive line has said that this offense, it simplifies what they have to do. They have a set of rules. They don't have to react to what the defense is doing as much.
Right.
How beneficial is that going to be for an offensive line that only has 2 returners coming in this season?
Well, that's huge, right? So you have 2 maybe young tackles, some young guys on the offensive line, and I think that's the perfect storm, and you need that in the NFL, where you have a system that you've put in place here where you got 2 young tackles. And if in a traditional system, it would be scary, because then you'd be in a situation where you got to drop back, you got to set the protections, you got to be spot on and dialed in. But here, offensively, you kind of put the defense on their heels a little bit with some of the shifts and the motions and the actions, and they're almost kind of catching, And so I think that if you're a young offensive tackle, that's a good situation to be in. Now, if you get in a drop back pass situation like any team, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be an uphill battle with those young guys. But if you can keep it balanced, you can keep the run game going, stay in manageable down distances like the San Francisco 49ers do, like the Green Bay Packers do, I think you'll be fine. And I think that you'll find that this offense is going to be very favorable to young tackles. They'll play very well, I think.
All right, let's pull it back a little bit. NFC South, who do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for the Saints?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you can look at I think Atlanta is going to obviously be improved. Carolina, who knows? The offense coordinator from Tampa Bay is now there. And is Tampa going to take a step back because of the loss of the coordinator? I know that, like Baker, they played excellent football. They were great on third down, great in the red zone. But when you lose the play caller, I mean, a lot of that was schematic. A lot of that was just dialing up the right play in the right situation. And Baker played great. But where's Tampa Bay going to be? How are they going to recover from losing that guy? Is Carolina going to be that much better because of getting that same coach? So I look at Atlanta as the team, really, because you have a veteran quarterback. Raheem is a great defensive mind. They're going to put together a good package. If they can get all their pieces together, Atlanta's probably going to be the team to beat. But you can't count out Tampa Bay. You can't count out Carolina making a huge jump. So it's going to be a competitive division. It'll be fun. It
is very exciting right now. Football is back. It is back together Saturday. David, thank you for joining us here on our show. He's got to get to Back Together Saturday stuff on NFL Network.
My real job.
Yeah. We appreciate you for the insight. Thank you so much. Appreciate David giving us the time. I did catch up with Ian and MJ as well, so we'll include that in later editions of the podcast. As for now, that wraps the first 4 days of Saints training camp. We'll be back with you on Monday as the Saints put the pads on. If you missed anything this week, just head to NewOrleansSaints.com. Interviews, highlights, pictures, everything is available on our website or social media. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.